balling, putting in that work early in the morning. Super Bowl team and now these haters salty. Rockin' Zenny shades to the championship ship. That Nick Bosa drop him hard like a hit stick. The Jimmy Ward intercept him with a big six. Like Debo, we gon' knock him like a brick. The Trey Lance play action to a drop back. When the blitz coming quick, the old line gon' block that. RPO with Kyle Juice. Mitchell and George Kittle, can't nobody stop that. Stand behind Kyle Shanny all the way. It's like a game of chess when he call to play. Brendan Ayuk on the slender fade. Bang, bang, Niner gang all day.
Videos courtesy of NFL.com. He's such an amazing player. Welcome to IE Sports Radio. I'm Niners Jess, along with Ty Austin, Maddie B, and your girl Bex. We are the East Coast Red and Gold. What's going on, everybody?
Doing good. How you guys doing tonight?
Good. Not too shabby.
Day 37 of Brock Purdy UCL watch.
And I'm sliding into the weekend early, so leaving out for Nashville tomorrow. So,
oh, nice.
Good night.
That's awesome. All right, so we have a special guest with us today, Kevin Skiver. He's with Sporting News, and we're gonna chat a little bit about the salary cap. Let's bring him in. What's up, Kevin?
A lot. How y'all doing?
Good.
Good.
Kevin, thanks.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So before we get started with the whole salary cap thing, why don't you talk a little bit about, your background, your career, how you got started up until now?
Sure. Yeah. I started out at CBS Sports about a year out of college. I majored in English and decided I wanted to go into sports about partway through. I freelanced with SB Nation throughout college and joined CBS Sports shortly after that. After I left CBS, which I wrote for 2 years, I covered the Saints on Canal Street Chronicles, the New Orleans Saints SB Nation arm. So shout out to them. I wrote for them for a few years, and then I joined Sporting News, where I cover a little bit of everything, including heavy emphasis on NFL, MLB, but when the NFL's in season, NFL reigns king.
Cool. So I won't hold against you the fact that you're a Saints fan.
I don't know what you had to hold against me. I should be holding it against you.
That's very true.
That is true.
Yeah,
very true.
I mean, if there's one franchise that the 49ers have pretty much gotten it on, it's the Saints, right? 35-3 comeback, check. Signing Deion Sanders over them in 1994, check. Winning the division pretty much every year outside of that 1 year, I think, that they won it with Jim Mora, check. Yeah. Pretty
Matt,
much.
you might
And then they left. And then they left the division.
Camera's going to go dark any minute.
Yes. This has been really fun.
This has been great. This has been great. And the playoff game, and then the other playoff game. Yeah.
Next day on the octave.
It's a long.
I know, right?
I understand now. I was just thinking out loud. Yes, we're good.
If you ask any Saints fan, their most painful losses, I think 2012 NFC divisional round is going to be high in that conversation. Always.
Oh yeah.
Top three at least. Do you rank that ahead of when the Rams did the horrific pass interference, or is that behind that? Is that the number one of all time?
I think I put it at 1 because the pass interference, a lot of Saints fans can kind of tacitly be like, okay, well, we all know what it was and it's fine, but there's no one to blame but themselves for 2012. There's just nobody. So it's just one of those things where we can scream the refs hate us and all that stuff, all that we want about the Rams game, but it doesn't apply in that case. So I think it hurts a little bit more.
Okay, understood. Thank you. That was a clarification. I wasn't trying to be that guy. I was just like, hey, I want you don't get this perspective that much, so you gotta ask that question, right?
Yeah, of course. No, it's all of them. They don't hurt per se to talk about, but it definitely is one of those things that I know it's fun to explore with other fan bases.
Yeah. Every time we talk to another 49ers fan, I'm telling you, the game that they always mention is the regular season game in New Orleans in 2019. That's all anybody talks about. They talk about that game. It doesn't matter who it is. They could be some random hobo on the street. Be like, name your top 5 games. They'll be like, Jimmy G in New Orleans, man. Like every single time. It's craziness.
Yep.
It
Yeah,
was
good times.
insanity the entire time. So much fun. The food was great. The people were great. We had a great time, even with the Saint fan base. So it wasn't just about the game itself, but it was the entire atmosphere and all the people and everything else that went along with it. So still tops game. Nothing. It's going to take a while for something to come close to that game. It was so amazing.
Yeah, I don't want to tie you up with Saints talk the entire time, but you won't find a more hospitable fan base. I truly do believe that.
So what did you think about that game?
I don't think about it. I think it's heavily just like it's just one of those things that it happened, and eventually you just have to be like, well, that happened and move on. It's just it hurts.
Meanwhile,
It's like
if
every
it was the other
NFC
way
title
around,
game that
49ers
we've seen
fans
the
would
last
still be
2
talking
years.
about it.
Yes, it must hurt.
was that,
It must hurt talking about NFC title games.
I was saying the last 2 NFC title games would be right up there for us in that exact thing. Like, yeah, the only way you deal with it is that they happened and it hurt, and then you have to see some stupid Sports Illustrated commercial reminding you. Like last year was worse because it was the Rams and they were the ones that like should have lost the NFC title game. So seeing the Sports Illustrated commercials last year, Rams fans, all 12 of you, you just won the Super Bowl, right? Like, so that's just like a little stab in the heart. The Kansas City one you can kind of deal with, but then you're like, oh yeah, they beat Philadelphia, and the reason they beat Philadelphia is because we had no quarterbacks. And then it's like an indirect passive aggressive stab. It's like you went to Green Bay and they were so nice to you that they were almost condescending.
Yeah, I think we can definitely agree on Ram slander anywhere we go. So that's good.
It's universal.
We can turn this into a Rams hater podcast if that's what you want.
We're not mad about that either.
There's one thing I can do, it's unite people, damn it. That's what it is, right? We find the common bond.
You brought it full circle, Matt. We were a little worried there at the beginning.
There you go.
See?
Kevin, someone wants to know your thoughts about Derek Carr coming to the Saints.
The bridge guy. I mean, it's really it's probably a 2-year thing. I think that you look for the quarterback of the future in the draft. I think Carr's fine, and I certainly think that he has a higher ceiling than Andy Dalton, who I did not anticipate spending most of the year watching last year. But I still think the ceiling is probably like wild card, even with the NFC being in the state that it's in. But I do think that he'll make them a little bit more enjoyable to watch next year, which after the season in New Orleans last year, I'll take 100%.
Cool. All right. So getting into the salary cap, I guess for the people who aren't too familiar how that works, if you just kind of want to describe it a little bit, the breakdown of things.
Yeah, sure. So the NFL salary cap, the way that it's distributed is based on TV deals and NFL revenue and all that, and then it's distributed amongst the teams. So essentially it's divided by 32, and then that's your cap number for the season. So teams have X amount of money to spend throughout the year, and they kind of use that to determine how they're spending for free agents. So the 49ers are sitting kind of right in the middle of the league. They're 17th at a shade under 8 million. Some of that will probably get freed up by restructures and void years, which in layman's terms are kind of kick the can strategies for GMs. They're ways to convert money into signing bonuses to essentially lessen the cap hits of certain players. So basically, the salary cap is just the number that you can't go over and you have to be under by the time week 1 of the regular season starts. So you work from there, and it's what determines how you sign your draft picks, how you just sign free agents, all that kind of stuff.
You guys are going to have a hell of a time doing that for next week.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack. There is a misconception about the cap that it is a myth. It is a misconception that is perpetrated by my own team and Mickey Loomis. because of the restructures and the void years. The salary cap is not a myth. The salary cap is more like the monster from It Follows, where it is constantly behind you. It is constantly sneaking up on you, except the way it's transferred is through restructures rather than, sex. So it's just one of those things that is an interesting thing to see fans reckon with and grapple with. But at the end of the day, there's only one certainty, which is that teams have to be under that total cap number by the time the season starts.
And the best way to do that is restructure.
For some teams, yeah. For a team like the 49ers that doesn't have a franchise quarterback, it's not necessary. It really comes down to how much they're going to want to spend this season. And they might end up with some lower cap hits on big name guys. Like Nick Bosa's cap hit will probably be lower after the inevitable extension that he gets. Right now, it's around 17 million after the 5th year option got picked up. So there are plenty of ways to convert that money. You don't necessarily want to restructure for guys who you're not sure about in the future. For example, in the 49ers case, I wouldn't want to restructure Fred Warner. I would rather restructure a guy like McCaffrey or Trent Williams, who are on the roster for a few more years. They would be difficult to move off of regardless. So you just kind of you restructure that money and move on from there. Eric Armstead is another one because he has those void years you're dealing with. Like there are a lot of things in play and a lot of balls in the air. But for some teams, it's a great option. For others, like San Francisco, it's not necessarily necessary.
Go ahead, Maddie.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask a quick question to follow up on McCaffrey. His $12 million this year is non-guaranteed, right? So he's probably looking to be some sort of restructure candidate. And it looks like the franchise tag for Barkley was just a little under 11. What are you thinking that you do with McCaffrey for a year like this, and what seems fair based on the running back market, but also recognizing the fact you're not just using him as a running back, you're using him as a wide receiver. So you're kind of on the reverse edge of what you had with Deebo Samuel just last year.
Yeah, I think a McCaffrey restructure, all things considered, is probably inevitable just because the Niners didn't give him that deal. They traded into that deal and he was grandfathered into it. So he's just getting into the teeth of that extension the Panthers gave him. So I think you restructure him, you convert it to guaranteed money, and you maybe void the 3rd year or something like that so that you have a chance to move off of him after those 2 seasons. But he's a luxury guy for the 49ers. He's a guy who you love to have. He's great, but he's such a volume target. And the 49ers have so many weapons. They have the Samuels, they have the Ayuks. They have enough weapons that you can let a guy like that walk and not have it devastate your offensive production. Like Carolina cratered because he was most of their production, and they thrived on defense. But the 49ers can draft a couple guys, and Kyle Shanahan is creative enough to make anybody work. So I don't know what a fair number ends up being for McCaffrey per se. I think that it probably ends up in the 7 to 8 million range, but I think that you have to do it in a way where you can move off of him without him getting really any older, because that running back drop off is steep.
Well, since we're on the subject of him, sorry, Jess. Just work through the mechanics of that, because like right now he's at $12 million. It's all salary. So they can take some of that money and convert it just into a bonus.
Yes, they would effectively convert it into a signing bonus. Mm-hmm. So once you convert it into a signing bonus, it doesn't affect your cap number for that season, but it carries over into future years. So it's basically prorated over the life of the contract. Okay. And you can void future years so that that guy he still has a cap hit on your roster, but it's going to be a lesser cap hit, first of all. And then also he's not tying up a roster spot on your team. And that's not to say that McCaffrey is a guy who ties up a spot. He's a very productive player, but he's a redundancy for a team like the 49ers at times, especially as he approaches 30.
So if you take the 12 and prorate it over the next 2 seasons, it would be a $6 million cap hit in 2024 and $6 million cap hit in 2025, essentially.
Yes.
In addition to whatever he may have
Right. Yeah.
coming up those
And-
seasons. Okay.
Yeah, and you can renegotiate the contract with incentives. You can do other things, but the bottom line is that you're not getting rid of that money. You're just
No.
lessening the number for a year, and then you're
Right.
moving it into future seasons over the course of over the life of the contract, rather than
right.
what the cap hit is.
Gotcha.
So I'm a little surprised that you had mentioned Eric Armstead and even Trent Williams because they're older.
Right, they are older. Trent Williams, I think, had he retired, the conversation would be entirely different. He is a guy though who is still, he's very productive. He's still a very solid player, and especially if McGlinchey walks this year, I think that you don't want to be in a situation where you're replacing multiple tackles down the line. So I think that they're kind of locked into Williams, all things considered, because he's older, it makes him harder to trade as well. And also because of the size of his contract, it also will allow you to save the most money this year if you're able to restructure it and prorate it. As for Armstead, it's less realistic because he's older, and that's why I said that he wouldn't be a great candidate to restructure anyways, because it has to benefit both sides to a degree, and it doesn't benefit Armstead to do it either. So I think I was just kind of heading off the idea of restructuring him because I don't think that it's a super realistic thing in this case.
So what about a guy like George Kittle?
I can't
Here
believe
we
you
go.
asked about Kittle.
Oh boy.
Quick time out here. Jess, where is George? We see Kyle.
Oh, he didn't make this episode.
Oh, pardon me.
Actually,
Must
he's
have
on
better
the
things to
football
do.
in the back over my
Okay.
shoulder. So
Gotcha.
He
We
knew this
thought you
question
guys
would
might
come
be
up.
having a little
Yeah.
fight or something. You know, he's on the
no, and he's
on the
also to the
outside.
right of me. So
Oh, there you go. He's just
Off
off
camera.
camera.
yes.
He knew this question was going to
Producing.
come up, so he decided not to show up. He's another guy who would be really difficult to do it, just because the injury history, you never know with a guy like that. I think that it could benefit him to have more guaranteed money, which this does guarantee more money in a lot of cases, but at the same time, because of the size of his cap number, I think that it would be a lot more difficult to negotiate that with a guy like him. As good as he is, I think that it doesn't behoove him to restructure. It would be too one-sided to realistically entertain for the Niners.
So someone mentioned D Ford in the chat. Why is D Ford still on our salary?
The Bobby
bunch of
Bonilla
dead money.
rule, I believe. I believe it's
whole
the
bunch
Bobby
of dead
Bonilla
money.
rule. No, I'm just kidding. It's not the Bobby Bonilla rule. It just seems like it.
That would be because of dead money. So whenever you move off a guy, there's always, if you could just cut a guy or trade a guy and not incur any of his salary cap, then teams would do it all the time. But because the Niners moved off of D Ford, they what's the word? They incur a certain amount of dead money, and so they pay that over the life of the rest of the contract. So unless a team specifically negotiates for it in a trade, the team that loses the guy is locked in to that player's dead cap.
So Kevin, is that because of what you described before, where you guarantee a certain amount of money and then it's prorated over the life of the contract? So if you move on before the contract is technically over, you still own that guaranteed money in your salary cap?
Right. Yeah. It's all about guaranteed money. So
Mhm.
I think that the quintessential example would be Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, because they guaranteed that entire contract. No matter what happens, they're paying him $230 million one way or another. It's just an inevitability. So because the money, it's not about the cap number, it is about the guaranteed money. That is what you're locked into. And then the other stuff can be incentive based, it can be prorated, it can be any number of things that teams do to kind of circumvent the cap for that year. You
bring up a great point on Deshaun Watson and a guaranteed contract, because that brings me to the next thing. which is over in 49ers fantasy land, where people just like play fantasy GM and just make things up and go along with things. You still see
Sign
on occasion
everybody.
people saying you got to get Lamar Jackson, right? And it's been rumored that Lamar Jackson wants a guaranteed deal. We don't know because he doesn't have an agent, but whatever. Go get your money, Lamar. Do whatever you got to do to go get it. Well, we're behind you 100%. But in this situation, like what before you even get started, like when somebody brings up an NBA trade rumor or anything like that, the first thing I'm always like asking is like, how much does it cost to bring them on? How much does it cost the team that's going to bring them in to actually acquire them? How much cap hit stuff do they need to have? If the 49ers really wanted to wait this out after the draft, when they could actually get into the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes, if it takes that long, if he's still on the market at that point with that non-exclusive tender, for these people that really want to know that, how much is that going to cost them this year? And what other players could that cost them this year? Because it seems like that would be a heck of a lot of money allotted to him to bring him on if you want to use him to fix your quarterback situation.
Well, that it raises a lot of questions. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but the first question is, what quarterback situation needs to be fixed? I mean, I don't
that goes without saying.
Maybe
Pardon me.
going out loud.
That's not.
Pull out that man.
That goes without saying, right?
But even if we put that aside, the realistic answer is that you have to restructure everybody I just mentioned, because this is a team with $8 million of cap space. So
Right.
if Lamar Jackson signs an all guaranteed deal, it's not going to be backloaded. It's a lot more likely to be prorated because he's not getting suspended for most of a season like Deshaun Watson did. The Browns specifically paid him $1 million because they knew that his salary would be cut into this season, which is why he agreed to that deal. So Lamar Jackson, assuming that he wants a guaranteed deal, so let's operate under that assumption, it would end up being prorated. It's going to be probably 5 to 6 years. And so you are locked into that deal. The 49ers would have to basically let every free agent walk. So Jimmy Ward, Deshaun Gibson, all gone, which there goes a secondary that already struggled for long stretches of time last season. And then on top of that, you are bringing in a quarterback who, yes, is by far the best option on the market. But I mean, I mentioned redundancies earlier. I can't imagine a bigger redundancy than bringing Lamar Jackson into the 49ers offense. That is awesome football fan fiction, and I would love to see it, and it will never in a million years happen. It's just not a realistic answer to any of their issues. So with the $8 million in cap space that they have, even if everybody walks, they would have to do so much maneuvering and so much work. It's not a realistic option.
Thank you. Good day. Thank you. That's what I needed. I needed that. I needed the world to hear that, and I needed them to hear that from somebody other than me. So
A little voice of reason there.
we traded 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance. Here we go.
I would point out there is something different about trading draft capital for a guy than for going for that. Like, the 49ers do draft well, but they're also a team who likes where they're at on their roster, and they're able to draft for luxury in a way that most teams aren't. So you can convert Mr. Irrelevant into an NFC Championship QB. That's awesome. Not many teams can do that. But Lamar Jackson just, I saw that idea floating around, and I was just like, that'd be awesome. Never going to happen. It's just kind of the way it is.
Sounds to me like Russell Westbrook going to teams. It sounds good in theory until he gets there, right? And it's not that he's a bad player. It's just the way he fits. Like, he kind of has to be the guy. You really nailed it with the word redundancy, right? Like, there's only one football to go around.
Yeah.
So, like, George Kittle needs to touch the ball. Deebo Samuel needs to touch the ball. Christian McCaffrey needs to touch the ball. You need somebody that's going to – Brock Purdy doesn't necessarily need to touch the ball. He can if he has to. Like, he can take it down and run with it, kind of like Montana used to. Just don't like Steve Young. But he's a distribute first sort of point guard in that aspect of it, and that's, to me, how this offense runs best.
Yeah, I mean, to stick with your basketball analogy, it's like adding Kyrie to the Dallas backcourt. like it just swallows up touches because you have two ISO heavy guys back there.
Yeah.
So if you have Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, and Deebo Samuel on the same offense, and George Kittle, then I mean, you have 4 guys getting 50% of the touches. The math doesn't work out. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So, a fan question: can you explain cash over cap?
Cash over cap? Do you mean like rollover cash?
Looks that way. Yes.
Okay, so and
Reading
Judge's
the tea
ruling. Yes, we're good. Yes, we're good.
Sure, go for it. Yeah.
in essence, cash over cap is basically teams are able to. I'm trying to think of the way that I can put this. Teams basically, it's like a squirrel hoarding nuts for winter. Like teams basically are taking a certain amount of money and they're storing it because their leftover cap from the previous season doesn't all go to the next year. So they basically are taking a certain amount of cash and they're putting it almost like a fund for the next season, and then it rolls over to the next year. And they can do it based on percentages, and the league approves rollover cap. So like, because you don't spend X amount of money this year, it doesn't mean that it all carries over. You have to, it almost operates as like a de facto salary floor where you are only bringing over a certain percentage as opposed to bringing over all of it.
That was a really good point. I was wondering about salary floors. That's a good way to do it, because you wonder if at some point some team in the league is just going to become like the Arizona Coyotes are in hockey, right? Just taking all the contracts, where all the dead contracts go to die, so that they can meet the salary floor every year.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to be like you don't want to have a Pittsburgh Pirates, Baltimore Orioles situation. It's the way that it goes. So it's kind of the way the NFL combats that, in a way that it's still allowing teams to actually rebuild.
Interesting. Last one for me. How do you think the Saints are going to do this year?
My guess.
I'm letting you talk about your team, so
I know I wasn't prepared. My guess is my guess for them is somewhere in the 9-8, 10-6 range, and like a wild card bounce. I actually don't think that they win the NFC South with that record. I think one of the other teams surprises us. I just don't think it's the Bucs. I think as good as I think the Saints can be, I think that Carr is a cap, and I think that the receiver situation, we don't know how the stuff with Michael Thomas is going to play out. He seems not dissatisfied, but less than thrilled with the team, I think it's fair to say. The Kamara situation is still like playing itself out. There are a lot of questions in the air, but in a weak division, I still think that they can come out and make the postseason. I just think I don't see them beating even the second best team in the NFC East or the second best team even in the NFC West, really. So I think it's better, and I think that it's better football this year, but I don't think that it's like, Super Bowl run type thing.
all right.
And to be clear,
Oh
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, to be clear, I want to believe in Dennis Allen, but like they hired him off of a 9-0 win over the Buccaneers in an interim role. So it's just kind of a red flag to me.
Yeah. I had one more contract question. I want to talk about void years and just how does that work? Like, say I'm the last year of my contract is a void year, and I have $10 million in base salary and a $2 million bonus. Keep the numbers simple. With that void year, does any of that count toward dead money at all?
A void year is effectively dead money. So it basically works. It basically works in a way where that's your cap hit. But you are not paying a bonus. You're not paying a roster bonus. You're not paying all that other stuff. So it effectively works as only a cap hit, and then it allows a team to move off of the guy that season. So teams will void years to get rid of the like guaranteed money they owe them that season and just kind of eat the cap hit. It's like it really came in vogue like 5 or 6 years ago once teams realized that the cap wasn't inflating at the rate that like quarterback salaries were, so they kind of had to find a way to work around it. But I think it's kind of an imperfect system that teams are still figuring out, and it's very much in flux about what it looks like from team to team.
So that's why a team might backload a contract and
Exactly.
say, hey, your base salary is averaging, 30 million a year, but 28 of that million is on the back end with the 2 void years there. Is that a reason why a team would do that? So they can not have to pay all that money, but also move on from a guy who may be like a vet at the end of his career?
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it. And it puts that guy on the market, so it works out for the player too if they want to find a change of scenery and that kind of thing, which is why a player might agree to it. It's not, I wouldn't call it betting on yourself, but I do think that it's kind of acknowledging that maybe a different location is needed at that point. But yeah, it's basically a way to move off of that money and make it so that both sides are able to have that kind of like amicable split.
Gotcha.
Cool.
I came in with a question for you guys, which is, if you are John Lynch, do you pick up the player option on Ayuk next season, knowing that it's for a $14 million cap hit?
Yes, because worst case scenario, you just have him for that year, and then if he hits the open market, he hits the open market, right? He seems to know when to let the guys go, and like he also knows when he's going to get priced out. Like he got priced out on Laken Tomlinson last year. He's going to get priced out on Mike McGlinchey this year. We already pretty much know that, right? So like odds are he's probably going to get priced out on Jimmy Warren and Azeez Al-Shire as well, because I would expect both of those two to have Houston zip codes pretty shortly. Just based on Houston needing to build their defense and build it with people that actually know the system. So that kind of, I think he knows that. So no matter what, that gives him that. And then also, if they need to tag him, they can tag him. So yeah, you always get that option in a worst case scenario.
And you're not paying franchise QB money next year either, which definitely gives flexibility in that one.
Yeah.
And looking at the wide receiver salary cap, Mark, look at the numbers look at the numbers that guys got last year, like Tyreek Hill and guys like that. Now, it's Brandon Ayuk, Tyreek Hill? No, not yet. But look at the number Christian Kirk got last year. You think Brandon Ayuk should get more than Christian Kirk?
Yep.
That's a good point. Yep.
Yeah, if I'm them, I'm picking up that 5th-year option.
Yeah.
At 14 million looks real cheap, for a number 1 receiver. And then that gives me the option to look ahead to my salary cap for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years to say, hey, how can we potentially work out a long-term deal with him?
Which is what it's really all about, right? Is just getting another year of control, kind of work that negotiation and all that stuff. I mean, that's the main reason you do it. Like, I think a lot of Niners fans last year thought they'd work out a deal with Bosa, and it didn't work out that way. So it's just, I think it comes down to having that player control, letting yourself kind of negotiate with them on your terms and figure it out from there. So yeah, I was curious where you guys fell, but I think that it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, my answer to that is yes.
There was a right answer. It didn't seem like there was, but there was.
All right. Anybody else?
No, we're good.
No, that
All
was
right.
I think I got it.
Thank you.
Kevin Skiver, Sporting
Appreciate
News
it, dude.
salary cap guy. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Enjoy
guys.
that
Thanks for
early
having
wake
me.
up tomorrow and the baseball. That'll be great.
Exactly.
Be good.
Yeah.
Always do. I'll be back asleep by 9. So
Set the coffee timer early. If you just set it up for like 15 minutes before you get up, you have some nice hot coffee waiting for you. Be good.
exactly.
Be
All right. Thank you guys
Enjoy
so much.
baseball.
All right. Have
I
a
always
good one.
do.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you guys.
See ya.
All right. Pretty cool.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, yes,
I love-
I saw that too. Thank you, Rob.
What's up, Rob D?
Thank you, Rob.
The way he said something in there earlier, I got a chuckle. He was saying something like, "And you got the Ayukes," and I was like, "That sounds like you like stayed out and got drunk last night and woke up with the Ayukes or something." It sounds like
You had food poisoning or something? Like,
Oh, I
just
got
the
the
way he
Ayukes
said it,
today.
it was like, ah,
Can't come to work.
just had a
I woke up
quesadilla.
with the
It's like,
Ayukes.
what? Yeah, it's terrible. You know what? That can be what happens to teams next year when he torches them for like 8, 162 and 2, right? Well, they got the
Right.
Ayukes.
Yep.
They're not feeling all that good today.
There you go.
Like the yips that kickers get, right? You're getting Ayukes
Correct.
today.
By the way, I did want to take a very brief moment before we transition into all the rest of the stuff that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But over the last 8 years, did you know, and I'm sure you did, but if you didn't, I'm going to tell you again, IE Sports Radio has been giving you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports leagues around the country. Of course, all the while, it's been by the fans, for the fans, and with your help, ready to take the next step. There are Patreon levels at the website available, iesportsradio.com. There's 5 different tiers. The first one starts at just $5 a month. This donation gets you shout outs on all the shows. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to Podcaster U, which is short for university, in case you're wondering, but you know about Tight Ends U already, so I figured you probably knew that. You even get a chance to be featured on the flagship show, The Defining Moment. Thank you all for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all of its sports. Again, that's iesportsradio.com. Also, if you're on the YouTube page, you should probably like and subscribe. Or subscribe and like. It's really your call in the order that you would like to do it. Maybe the system makes you do it in a specific way. I'm not really sure. Make that decision on your own.
But we're down for it.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
right.
make sure
We
you like
support
and
you.
subscribe to us, East Coast Red and Gold. And
And then tell your friends.
Yeah. That and also iesportsradio.com/East Coast Red and Gold. All right, guys.
All right.
If you haven't heard, Brock Purdy's having surgery on Friday.
What?
Biggest friggin' surgery in recent history. Like, honestly, honest to God. Ugh.
Originally it
So
was today.
Yeah.
Now it's
Right.
Friday. I was listening
Mhm.
to NFL radio, I think it was yesterday, and they were like, "Oh yeah, Brock Purdy already had his surgery on Monday," and I'm like, "Wait a minute."
Someone make up their mind.
About it.
I'm telling you, I'm waiting to wake up Thursday and be like, hey, Brock surgery had a stealth surgery late Wednesday night. Everything's fine, right? Like I'm like this is being held closer than the Zapruder film at this point. Like this is top secret stuff with Brock Purdy. And we still don't know what they're going to find when they get in there, which is a whole other thing. Everybody's got the timeline already. Oh, everything's going to be fine. Really? He hasn't gotten in there yet, because everything I heard at the beginning was they have to go in there and see it first. And allegedly nobody's been in there to see it. So if nobody's been in there to see it, why are you setting up this best case timeline?
Funny thing you mentioned that. I saw just this week, somehow the timeline has moved from 6 months best case to 5 months.
Mm.
I was like, wait a minute. What kind of medical miracle is this? just out of the blue.
Is there some sort of X-ray
back in 5
vision
months.
that I'm unaware of, that there's access to, that I am
right?
What is
That's
happening?
pretty interesting.
Well, I mean, I heard
Unbelievable.
that the surgery is complete and healed in 3. It's the throwing recovery time from 3 to 6 that's important for him to rebuild and regain all of the throwing strength. But 3 months is it for the healing process, is what I read in some of those other articles with doctors and such about.
And that's what Doc said last week, right?
Right.
If it's bracing, that's what it is. So like but everybody else, doctor, whoever the hell you are, like you're not a real doctor, Dr. Nick Riviera or whoever the hell you are, Dr. House with a suspended license, I'm not really sure. Dr. Ross,
WebMD.
after he lost his license in Illinois, like
Dr. Oz.
any one of them. Yeah, Dr. That's an entirely different show on another planet.
Right.
But yes, that's like it's just that's how that thing goes, man. Like the 5 month thing is what gets me, and now everybody's like, he'll be fine. Oh yeah, September 7th he'll be magically healed. September 7th is a magical day. Apparently it's a day of healing. It'll be great. Dr. Phil will be another good one.
He's another good one, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine with the swelling going down, he probably would have gotten another MRI, and hopefully things are a little clearer.
You'd think, but wouldn't you think we'd have gotten a report on that?
I don't.
I'm not-
I honestly think that they're keeping like you said, like everything's
close to the
kind of
vest.
hush hush. I think they're keeping their cards close to the vest with this.
At
I
this
know, it's kinda
point, I
weird.
think so. It's out there. He needs surgery, and now he's having surgery, and anything that's transpired in between the delay and the actual surgery is just, we don't need to give details. It is what it is. We're going to keep that to ourselves, and nobody needs to know any other tidbits of information. If it's more positive, great. It's going to be more positive, and he'll be back in 5 months. But if not, then the timeline will stay at the 6 month range or whatever. So hopefully, they're seeing good things, and they'll get in, do the surgery, and it'll be sunshine and butterflies and, rainbows.
Lollipops.
I think you need to bring the candlestick dirt with you to Nashville.
Yeah.
There it is, readily
Take it
available.
around.
Yes. Candlestick dirt will travel.
Right. Half dirt will
I'm bringing my
travel.
carry-on so they don't
Go eat breakfast at the Shoney's in the parking lot across the street from the Titan Stadium, then just slide over, drop a little in the Titan Stadium, and move on. Right.
Hey, boo.
Hey.
So staying on the quarterbacks, everyone's talking about Lamar Jackson.
That's why I asked that. That's why I had to.
Yeah.
I just can we do math first before we just start putting people? Let's not even think of the schematic stuff. Let's not think of all the other things, right? I just need to know, what is the math on this? Like, what does this cost? And what does this cost in terms of man hours? Who do we lose because of this? Seems like we lose a lot of people. And you're losing a guy that hasn't finished the season the last 2 years. And these are the same people that complain that the quarterbacks can't stay healthy. But we're going to run out, and now all of a sudden Lamar Jackson is going to be Cal Ripken. He's going to stay healthy, and he's going to be Iron Man. It's going to be
You took
great.
the words out of my
Can't
mouth.
wait.
I'm like, we're going to bring in Lamar Jackson, who can't stay healthy, and expect him to play and stay healthy because we have an injury problem.
He's also a run-first quarterback.
Right. We don't like that. We don't need that in our offense.
They'll just blame Kyle when he gets hurt, right? That's what will happen.
Right.
That's how that works.
That's what most people do.
There's Jared.
Make it
Where's
make
Jared
sense.
when we need him?
But there's a reason why, like Hollywood
It's a
Brown,
flat circle.
there's a reason why his main receivers are no longer in Baltimore. So he definitely wouldn't be a match on the 49ers.
No.
And then we're still
we don't
on
even know if he's a match on his own team right now, right?
That's
They
true.
hired a college coordinator. Like, it seems to me like they're trying to. It's like they're trying to do what Green Bay is doing to Aaron Rodgers. It's like, listen, if you want to come back, that's fine, but just know that you're going to be sleeping on the couch because we've got somebody new here. Like, that's really what it seems like. Like, the Jordan Love thing is getting all set up in Green Bay. Like, as I tweeted earlier, if they're not calling Lambeau Field the Love Shack by the middle of next year, something is wrong. Something is horribly wrong. There should be
That
a
was a good one. I
B-52s
enjoyed that.
concert pregame, like before Monday Nighter, probably against the Bears. Like, Bears fans need to be subjected to that. That's fine. Just for the thought of trading Justin Fields, I think is ridiculous as a whole other level of ridiculousness. Let's just waste 2 years of quarterback development. It's fine. No big deal. It's fine. It's fine.
Is
You
it fine?
mentioned nicknames
It's fine.
for the stadium. Go ahead, Jess.
It's fine.
People are still on the Trey Lance train. I don't know why. But I wish people would just, whoever is under center, just support them. But once
What's their
again,
plan?
What's that?
What's the plan though? If these are the same people that want to bring Lamar Jackson, I guess I understand.
Hello, Tom.
You want to get Lamar Jackson in here and trade Lance. That's fine, but that'll help because that's another $12 million of dead money that you're trading on your contract. That's fine, because you're trading him on a guaranteed rookie deal. Like there's no salary cap savings if you trade Trey Lance. If anything, you screw yourself just a little bit more. You need 2 QBs, but what do? You go out and get Tyler Huntley? Is that who you sneak in? Like you grab him, if you're signing Favre, you had to sign Doug Peterson, kind of the same deal. Or like when Dennis Rodman needed to have Haley with him, kind of that same guy. You got to sign them both. They're both part of your team. So that's what it would be. You're not going to do that. Look, they've already pretty much decided that Brock Purdy was the dude, and then Brock Purdy got hurt. Now Trey Lance has a chance to be the dude if he can play really well. If not, they're going to caretake it and bring Brock Purdy back and let him be the guy when he's healthy again. That's pretty much what everybody needs to expect. Every other sort of conspiracy theory or anything else is kind of out the window until we know exactly what's going on with Brock Purdy's elbow. But that's the situation on the ground right now.
But even so, I think thinking long term here, the team knows they have 2 young quarterbacks that they can move forward with. It's
Correct.
just a question of which one.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There's uncertainty with Brock because he's due with his surgery, but even if he's out for, knock on wood, even if worst case scenario, he's out for 2023, I can easily say, okay, we know we have him for 2024 and beyond. That's there. It's written. Okay. Trey Lance is there. We can ride him out through the season. If he remains number 1, so be it. After that is just bringing up extra arms just in case. But the plan moving forward is these 2 young guys, and then filling out the roster with a 3rd and a 4th, like teams always do.
Because that money has already been budgeted.
Exactly. And that money's already been budgeted. It's being counted on that these guys will be here. They're not counting on picking up Aaron Rodgers $50 million.
Right.
That is not accounted for.
No.
They don't want his attitude.
All about that.
Exactly. We just tried to move on from Jimmy G. We actually did move on from Jimmy G's $24 million. Got it cut down to 6. Now it's like, okay, let's bring in a $50 million. The math doesn't make sense. The math ain't mathing.
Not mathing at all.
Mm-mm.
Trey starts all year and he stays healthy for all the games. I just needed to do that like John Lynch does. You're welcome. Put that in there. Probably 3,500 passing. I'd say 3,500 passing yards. Look, Daniel Jones rushed for 700 yards last year. You think Trey Lance can rush for 700 yards?
Yeah.
I would think so.
You do that.
Daniel Jones, by the way, only had 15 touchdowns this year?
And he got all that money.
He got all that money, and I'm pretty sure Brock Purdy threw more touchdown passes than he did.
He did.
Yeah.
And he didn't start until
games.
December. So how much is Brock Purdy worth on this market right now if his contract was up, right? So now you've got him for the price of a Snickers, basically, on this salary cap. So that's why. And you already had Trey Lance. Like the plan was it was going to be Trey Lance, and then, oh, hey, Brock Purdy's going to slide in. So those 2 salary things are right there. So now you're still going to get that, hopefully that same production out of both. Maybe you get more production out of both because Trey Lance is going to end up playing more now. Odds are he's probably going to have a game somewhere. That's just how this league works. But you need two solid quarterbacks. But it has been proven now that you need more than that. You need a 3rd who can be ready to go, or you need a 4th in the holster just in case, right? Whether you're going to draft this kid from Fordham or one of these other random quarterback prospects that fits, so be it. COVID really messed up college football over the last couple of years. You really don't know where your next quarterback's going to come from. Anybody think it was going to be Brock Purdy from Iowa State? No. Nobody did before the draft. They didn't think he was going to be, Kirk Cousins light, right? Just firing in off the street and start doing things. They didn't think he was going to be more efficient than Jimmy Garoppolo, but he was. So Now you grab
They
somebody like a
outperformed Nate Sudfeld, and we cut him what weekend
right,
season. He was
and
gone.
eight. Speaking of money, ate a $2 million cap hit on Nate Sudfeld
Yep.
because Brock
Yeah.
Purdy outplayed him so much. Now think about that.
Exactly.
They invested $2 million into Nate Sudfeld to have him here, and they said, "Nope, you're not as good as Brock Purdy, so we're going to
Out.
keep him instead."
Yep.
That's $2 million you could use somewhere. That gets you a long snapper, right? That could get you a different kicker. Like it could get
After
you an Eddie
Robbie
Pinheiro.
Gould's contract.
Right. I mean, Robbie
Yep.
Gould's $5 million is going to be coming off the book as well. Like, you
Yeah.
know, that's and draft that kid from Michigan, maybe. He'd be a good one. I'd like to see a rookie kicker. P.S. The last time the 49ers, remember when they won the Super Bowl in '94, they had a rookie kicker by the name of Doug Bryan. It's usually a pretty good sign if they got a rookie kicker, in my opinion. That's just me.
Although now I'm seeing things that maybe Robbie will come back.
Yeah, I've seen
It's
that.
a usual left turn that I.
Yeah. You took on Twitter.
No, I've seen that too. I've actually seen that from some like actual like legitimate journalists too, like not just random people that look to be journalists on the interwebs. But it still doesn't make sense to me because he really went over the top with his goodbye. Like way over the top. I feel like he went that far over the top.
Well,
to,
didn't
like,
he did
say
that last
goodbye.
time too? You know,
I don't
he did that last time. He was gone, and you know at the end of the last contract, and it was like pulling teeth to get him to stay. But you know, when he's here, he's amazing. So I don't know. I saw that he was going to test free agency, but maybe he just assumed they wouldn't want to pick up a contract that big. But I don't know. I think it's insane if we don't spend the money on him. It's, you know, all things
I
relative.
just hope that he doesn't go to Dallas because I enjoy Dallas having a kicker that
That is exactly what I'm envisioning. Robbie Gould in Dallas because of the yips.
Robbie Gould pulls
We
a
don't need
Charles
Robbie
Haley.
going there. We don't.
That's what we need.
Ty, what do you think?
He said he wanted to go home, and he talked about that 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's Chicago, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to go home, be near home, whatever. So, and I can't fault him with that. The guy's been pining for home for 2 years. So let him go. Let him be. You know, it's and that's one thing that people tend to not think about. These players, when they want to go somewhere, they have the right to go there, and they will. They don't have to re-sign with the team. They want to do what's best for them. Whether that's going home or just going somewhere and taking a lot more money. So, you know, good luck to Robbie. I wish him well, but it's time for us to move on. Yeah, it's that simple. Now, whether we draft a guy or we pay a free agent remains to be seen. I think we're going to draft someone because I don't think they want to allocate, you know, $1 million+ to a kicker.
Yeah, he's 40, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and when a kicker goes, they go quick, man. Like
yeah.
Y'all remember when the wheels fell off at Adam Vinatieri? Like they fell off and that was it. Like that was good night and thank you for playing. Same thing with Gary Anderson. Hell, same thing with Morton Anderson. Really, like although Morton Anderson came back and was still kicking it till the end. Like shout out to you, dude. But when they hit that wall, they hit that wall, and that's a wrap. So. Yeah, what'll probably end up happening is they're going to draft a guy and they're going to sign somebody free agency that they've liked for a while, and they'll have them compete, and whichever one wins will be the one who wins, right? Mm-hmm. Or they'll give the free agent the chance to win it first, and if he gets yippy, then here comes a rookie. Like that's I'm guessing is probably what's going to happen as we continue to sit here and see this. What I'm looking to see is what they're going to do in free agency, what they're going to do for deals to make moves. Like, are they going to upgrade at safety? Are they really serious about a Jesse Bates sort of guy, right? What about a Leonard Floyd to play on the other side of the line? Yeah, to
nice
bring some pressure from the
sure.
other side, right? That's a guy that weakens your rival. And oh, by the way, Leonard Floyd stays healthy. He plays all the games. That's something that I really enjoy in Leonard Floyd. He shows up every single week. So
What about the
if you have,
double Bosa, the double Bosa talk?
yes, the double Bosa talk would be something that would be like, it's almost like they're trying to will it into existence.
Mhm.
My guess it would probably make it a hell of a lot easier for the family too, right?
Yeah, right.
Like,
Yeah.
so
Cheryl,
I
we know where
mean,
Cheryl will be every week.
with her split jersey.
right.
Well, she wouldn't need a split jersey.
Oh, that's very true.
She wouldn't.
That's
Well,
very
I mean,
true.
she
Maybe
would. She'd have
number
to have
wise, she would
The
split the
numbers.
numbers.
she'd have to have a red one and a white one, and like Joey
Hard to
would
do.
have to
Different
move to
number.
like 80 something
Yeah.
or like 50 something, I think. Maybe a 70, sort of that deal.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
One
That'd be
week
tough
you wear
because
one,
that would be
the
really
next week you
confusing.
wear the other. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maddie, how much would you pay a kicker?
In a perfect world, I would draft a guy and nail it right off the spot, and I'd pay him about 600 to 800,000 or whatever the minimum is for that spot, right? I'd nail a guy in the 6th round. And when you look around and you look at people doing, stuff in college, to me, I'm looking for somebody who could really kick off so that Wisnowski doesn't have to do it.
Yep.
And somebody that can kick from deep in case, there's a situation where you're down by 2 or you're down by 1 and you can make that kick and you're going to be 60 yards, or you can sneak those 3 yards in before the half, right? I feel pretty confident that no matter what, this team can probably find a 40-yard chunk play when they need it. So if you can get a 40-yard chunk play, you can get to some sort of field goal range. If you can get to that point, then you can start stealing some points here and there that maybe points are falling off the board. That would be great. I mean, in a perfect world, I don't want to pay my kicker any more than $2.5 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I want somebody young. To me, kickers are like running backs. You're going to have them for 5 to. If you get really good and get really lucky, you're going to have somebody for 5 to 7 years. That's pretty much who you're going to have, no matter who it is. Whether you catch them out of the draft, there are a lot of kickers that were okay with other teams, and then they got picked up by other teams, and that's when they really kicked it in, right?
Yeah.
Like Tony Franklin was better with New England than he was with Philadelphia, and he went to the Super Bowl with both of them. Of course, he was the barefoot kicker. I really wish they'd bring the barefoot kickers back. Those guys, Rich Carlos, that was the best, man. But kind of the same deal, same vibe.
Becca, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, kickers don't make, big salaries, and I think the $2 to $3 million range is pretty much average for veteran kickers to start getting up into the $5 million range where Robbie is. It's a big number for the kicker position. But when I don't know, sometimes someone proves themselves and they're clutch and they've come through and done things and been so consistent, you have to value that on some level, especially if your quarterback position is a bit in flux and unknown. You might be looking to kick more field goals than normal, but I do think Robbie's not coming back. It's sad and disappointing and all of those things, but from the dollars and cents perspective, we're moving on. Whether that's a veteran or drafting, it's going to be someone else kicking for us.
Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, we're moving on. And you heard John Lynch said at the draft, at the combine, they're doing their due diligence on kickers. They're looking. And, we've seen like a guy like Evan McPherson, who the Bengals drafted like 2 years ago. Young kicker, strong leg, kicking from deep, pretty accurate. It's those type of guys that are coming out now who we can get. And like Matt said, pay them 600 to 800,000, depending on what round and where in the round we grab them. And it doesn't hurt us. And it gives us that strong-legged guy that can kick from deep. I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of times where we're at that 48, 49, 50-yard range where I'm like, ooh, we got to kick a field goal. Man, if we only had 3 or 4 more extra yards, I would feel secure with Robbie. Because he's at that age where the leg he's accurate, but the leg isn't as strong as it once was. Now it's time to get younger, get a stronger leg so we can kick from deep. Also, reduce that salary. I always felt like unless you're Justin Tucker, Buckner, or one of those top guys, those booming 55 and 60 yarders, we shouldn't be paying, $4.5 to $5 million for a kicker. It just doesn't make sense economically.
It's a lot, but don't you think Robbie is consistent and accurate?
Super consistent, super accurate.
Yeah,
and
so
we needed that.
Said for that. I mean, from 50 to 50 yards, he's perfect. Generally speaking, you can almost guarantee he's going to make it. So it's one of those deals where he's earned it, to some extent.
But Ty's right. I mean, most of his kicks, it's like you want to, all right, we just a little bit more, like it doesn't go as far as, it used to go. Switching
but
gears.
Also keeping the long snapper in the holder, just to wrap that up real quick, keeping the long snapper in the holder helps because now you've kept your system in place, right? You still got the same special teams coach. You're going to have same long snapper and you're going to have the same holder. You just got to get somebody in there that's in their own head and can do their stuff. So that eliminates a bunch of other moving parts as well. So you don't have a new holder coming in. You don't have a new long snapper coming in. So that makes things a little bit more palatable in that aspect. So somebody's actually going to come into an already ready-made offense. They're just going to be replacing Robbie. They're not going to have to rebuild the whole thing and make the whole wheel again.
Right.
Agreed, Bryant.
Yeah, it's just that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to let him walk either. Like, if in a perfect world, that's what it is. But if he's decided that's what it's going to be, I'm not just going to go throw $5 million at somebody. Like, who's the best kicker in the league right now? Are you going to get Justin Tucker? And how much is Justin Tucker per year?
Yeah.
Ravens aren't going to get rid of him.
Yeah.
They can't even sign their own quarterback at this point. So, what are they? They're not going to. Their highest scoring threat is their kicker at this point. They can't afford to get rid of him, frankly.
Yeah. Once again, that's the thing with Robbie.
Well, that was my point with Robbie.
Yeah, Robbie has decided to leave.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now look at this from a business standpoint. We need to pay Nick Bosa this year. We got to rebuild our offensive line and defensive line. We got bigger
and
needs
secondary
in place.
needs a refurbish.
Yeah, exactly. Let's shift the allocation of these funds, lower the kicker salary, and we can spend it elsewhere. It just makes for smart football. This is a time for us to do a little smart football maneuvers, and we should take advantage of it.
Trust the Shanna plan.
We do.
And the cap is going up in years, and you can push some things forward. But at the end of the day, if you get in one of those situations like you had 2 years ago where COVID shut some stuff down, so your salary cap is $30 million under what it's supposed to be, there's going to be a lot of hard questions at that point, right? So you always got to be prepared for whatever comes around. You can't just spend to the cap every year and whip it out again the next year. You just can't keep doing it over and over and over again. And eventually, it's like you said, it eventually catches up with you.
Yeah. And in a year like this year where we're kind of up against it, you kind of have to make those hard decisions.
Right. Switching gears. Yesterday was the deadline for the franchise tag. Are you surprised we didn't use it?
No.
Nope.
We hardly ever use it. Yeah.
Once it was decided it wasn't going to be used on Robbie Gould, no.
Yeah.
Nope.
The last time we used it was on Robbie. And then
Robbie.
we quickly restructured that into a 2-year deal. So
didn't see anybody that Can you imagine if they'd used the franchise tag on Mike McGlinchey just for one hot minute? Just think about that for a second. The internet would have melted down from within.
Yep. 49ers Twitter would have broken.
It would have the glue would have been melting everywhere because it would have unglued. It would have been horrific.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss Mike McGlinchey solely for the fact that we won't be talking about him as much.
That was somebody that really united a lot of folks, right? It really did.
That's true.
Yeah, right.
Came together, common cause.
So let's talk a little Jimmy Ward.
J-Dub. Yeah.
He said on his Instagram live that he didn't say he wanted to leave. I'm paraphrasing here.
Yeah.
He also said he's been in contact with the nurse. Maybe he'll be playing nickel again next. Who knows? What do you guys think?
You broke up a little bit there on my end.
Yeah, he broke up, but
Jimmy-
he said he wouldn't be.
What do
He'd be open to
you
playing
guys think
nickel
of
next
Jimmy
year.
Ward coming back?
And did you say he thought he might come back and play nickel? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
So to be open
Yeah.
he said
to
on
it,
his
Yeah.
IG live.
allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if they bring him back, I mean, Steve Wilkes is going to find a good use for him and play to his strengths. So, I mean, I think that's probably all still in negotiation for the Niners for sure.
Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Steve Wilkes plays a lot more zone. He's a zone heavy guy, and I don't think that'll change. It'll just be our zone concepts, which Jimmy Ward is good at. So I can see them coming back. Talking to him about that, playing nickel, and we know if they're able to re-sign Gibson or not, he can always go back to free safety. That's an option. So it gives us flexibility from just a roster standpoint, having that guy that can play two roles and just put him in where we need him.
And knows the system.
Yeah, exactly. Knows the system. It comes down to economics, I think. Because the same way, we always mention how Kristen Kirk got that big deal. There's always teams that throw money at people.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Ward being versatile, playing, the way he plays, he makes highlights. You easily see a team going, hey, Ward, if they are not willing to do something for you, we got 15 million here for you. You can't fault him if he's going to say, hey, I'm going to take that 15 million and go. Thank you, San Francisco, but I'm moving on. So we got to see how this field plays out.
Jacksonville's already provided the I was going to say Jacksonville's already provided the template for how to win the AFC South. They've honestly provided the template for any team that wants to win a division that's mediocre, right? Go out, overspend on your free agents because you have to.
Yeah.
That's just what you have to do. Go look at the NFLPA player ranking report cards if you're about teams and franchises. If you don't believe me, it's not my words, it's theirs. They go out and then they build that culture. And they hire a guy who, fun fact, has won a Super Bowl. So that helps quite a bit too, right? And then you've got a young quarterback who just happened to be number one in the league, happened to, win a national title and do some things in college. And then you get him some weapons. Yeah, are the weapons perfect? No, but they got the best out of Evan Engram that's ever been out of Evan Engram last year. Christian Kirk kind of found his way, did some things. And Travis Etienne was healthy. That's a whole other thing. They had a first round running back as a rookie that came back and took things over so much to the point that they were able to trade their veterans. So they showed you how to do it, right? And if you look at Houston this year with all the money that they have to spend, you talk a lot about they could get Jimmy Garoppolo to play. I can't imagine Jimmy's going to want to sign there and then have to babysit another freaking quarterback. I can't imagine he would want to do that. Yeah, I'm sure Houston's had amazing internal discussions. What if we get Jimmy and then he could talk about that? What if Jimmy just holds up the middle finger and says, no, thank you. I'm not here to babysit your first rounder. Like, I'm all set. Like, I just can't imagine that he's going to sign anywhere where he's going to be in that position again where somebody can just push him right out the door. Like, if he gets pushed out by a seventh rounder, he gets pushed out by a seventh rounder. What the hell are you going to do? But I don't think he's going to want to willingly to go to one of these situations where they could very well, draft Bryce Young or Richardson or Levis or whoever, Hooker, any of them, no matter who they are, and be that. I don't think he wants to be Obi-Wan again.
I think Washington's going to be that team that's going to push hard for Jimmy J.
Really, even with Howell there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I could see that.
Seasoning.
I could see that. Tampa would be a place too, but I don't know how much longer a lot of their veteran guys are going to be there. How much longer is Godwin going to be there? How much longer is Evans going to be able to play? Like,
Mhm.
how much longer before they're doing what Carolina does? That's another team too. Carolina, to me, I don't think they're drafting up high enough to where they're going to get the guy that they want. Are they going to trust Jimmy?
Yeah.
Jimmy's a winner, right? Or do they not trust him? Like, somebody out there is going to do something. And then all these teams, by the way, that said they were out on Lamar Jackson, which is hilarious. Like, all right, what's your ultimate plan? I can't wait to hear this.
Right.
Does Atlanta really believe in Desmond Ritter? Did they really like what they saw last year? And they're like, yep, that's our dude. Okay, if that's the case, so be it. You're going to be running with that super low cap hit at quarterback. So shout out to you, my friend. Like, that works great. That works cool. If not, Carolina, there's so many of these teams. I'm just like, I'm amazed. In the next, I think we're 50 days from the draft.
Yes.
Today's
Yeah.
It's too bad that today's not day 49 from the draft. That's a disappointment.
We're just
That's
going to
kinda
say
sad.
it is and live with it.
It's almost 49 days until the draft.
Right. There you go.
So, although the draft doesn't really matter to us until day 2, so I guess it's 51 days. So I guess it's not quite as sad. We're 2 days off. So be it.
That's true.
So, it's going to be real interesting to see how that whole thing goes. If there's going to be this giant run on quarterbacks, it reminds me of that year that remember Jake Locker got drafted, and like all these like mediocre quarterbacks got drafted, like in the top 20. Hooker, Christian Ponder, guys like that. It was just this big run, and it was like none of them did anything. Nothing.
Well, wait till
at
the last
all.
pick in the draft. That's the secret.
I think my question is, who do we want? Who's our number one pick for veteran QB to be added to the room? Not a guy that's going to be clearly better than the 2 we have. We want somebody who's totally cool. Like, hey, you're going to be the second or third stringer.
We're
We're going to be leaning on you a lot.
I am going to stick with Nate Sudfeld.
Okay. Ty?
I go with Nate. He's going to be cheap. I don't know. Everyone else out there is like blah, so blah. I'm just stick with Nate or my boy Nick Money Mullins.
Beck, how about you?
That's my guy right there.
Nick Money Mullins.
Like I think Nick Mullins would be, an ideal person for that spot.
Look, in a dream world, I think it would be Jacoby Brissett, because I think he would be the guy that you could count on to stay healthy or play hurt, right? And still do the things you need to do. And he's also mobile enough to make things happen, right? So in a dream world, that would be the case. I'm guessing somebody else is going to sign him and do that. But Steve-O just took my guy. Brian Hoyer's due to be released this week by the Patriots.
I'm going to
To
say
me, in a
hard
perfect
pass.
world, Brian Hoyer or Nate Sudfeld, I'm taking Brian Hoyer every time.
Do we not remember 2017?
Oh, 100%. But that was, in fairness, I would say this roster is a little bit more different, right? You need a veteran. I don't think Nate Sudfeld. What are they going to learn from Nate Sudfeld? I feel like they're going to learn more from Hoyer. I would take Hoyer over Sudfeld at this point.
What they learned in 2017 when he was when he hit Kyle Shanahan with a perfect pass on the sideline.
I'm not saying I want the guy to play. I want somebody that's like just very more assistant coachy. And to me, he's a very assistant coachy. They're going to draft a kid anyway that's going to end up taking a spot, right?
I get you. I get you 100% on that. Whoever we bring in to be QB number 3 is not seeing the field. He's not playing. Our quarterbacks are remaining healthy this year. So let's get that out there. Whoever comes in is number 3. I understand why they want a veteran to kind of be the older guy in the room for these young guys. I just think having a guy who's had a little success like Brissett did last year would make a lot of sense. I don't see us landing him though. So then you're kind of scraping that bottom tier of QBs. Okay, who can we get? And that's when it's hard, Like who exactly can we get?
Come on, you know we're calling Tom Brady.
Yeah, he's at that bottom tier of quarterbacks for sure.
Tom Brady has a new kitten. He can't.
But Tom
I read
Brady,
that
look,
too.
at the end of the day, we can all talk about it, right? And we can all joke about it. But if they go in on Friday and they find out that Brock Purdy's thing is not quite as beautiful as we once thought, and all of a sudden this magic timeline sneaks out and the season's off, I promise you, John Lynch is going to make a phone call, and he's going to gauge the interest
Yeah.
because he has to, because he's a general manager.
Why
Does
does
that
he
mean we
have
want
to?
this to happen? No.
Damn, here we go
Who
with
else
the
are you
doom
going to
and
go
gloom.
get?
I know.
I know. Why
There's-
does he have to?
At this point, is
I
there
just said
another
no quarterbacks
Super
are getting
Bowl?
injured next year.
Well, I know, I agree with you. That would be the case, but the question becomes real simple. Do you trust that
Baby,
John
can't
Lynch
do,
has
baby,
faith in
can't.
Trey Lance to win this
Oh
team a
God,
Super
that's going to
Bowl?
be in my head now.
He trusted him last
Right?
season, so why wouldn't he trust him this season?
Did you see that video with the body language video with the scratching?
Screw that internet crap. No,
I
screw
get
that internet
it.
crap.
I find it funny. I just find it funny. But
was
we also,
given the
but
keys to the
I'm-
car last season.
that's what they and that's what they did, right? And say whatever you want about what happened, but what has John Lynch said since? What has he said since? What does he say about Trey Lance every time he talks about him? If he stays healthy.
Yeah,
If he stays healthy.
his canned response.
He can't stop adding that on.
Well, but John
He
Lynch
has
also
to mention
mentions
it.
about his, how many years that he was injured, that he wasn't
100%.
injured. He says the same thing.
But if he doesn't believe in it, if whatever he's seeing, when he looks out that window, right, which fires him up when anybody else does it, right? Drake Jackson, anybody else, he looks out that window. If he doesn't like what he's seeing, or he doesn't like whatever's going on, he's probably going to make that phone call if Kyle tells him to, right? Or make that phone call and be like, hey, Kyle, you're not going to believe the phone call that I had last night. That's the other question I have here. Would Lynch do that and Kyle say, no? Or does Kyle feel the same?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't know. The whole thing is fascinating. It's truly fascinating. I just want him to. That's my point, Brian. Why won't they just come right out and back him and say, listen, Lance is our guy until Brock is healthy. That's how it is right now.
But hold on. They backed Lance last year.
Right.
Gave him the keys to the kingdom.
They did.
Who said they don't back him anymore?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Exactly.
Matt,
But they have
besides this fan
national
base.
media.
Have they come
has
out and
painted
said that they
this
back him this year,
narrative.
though?
The national media has painted this narrative by
Yeah.
not discussing Trey Lance at all. That gives you the perception that the 49ers don't want him. But
But
last
that's
year
the
they
society,
backed him.
sadly,
I've
we live
talked
in
to
now.
people who went to the combine this year and they've spoken to 49ers people and they said they still believe in Trey Lance.
Good.
It's just these stupid national
We
media
need more
people
of that.
like Ian Rappaport, who's like, oh yeah, and if Brock Purdy's injured, you can't wing out them trading for Lamar Jackson. They don't even mention Trey Lance's name, which is I can't understand.
Yeah, it's amazing
why.
how quickly anyone's able to move on in that scenario. But it's not that nobody's, people. Oh, they don't. Those are the people, right? They say that they're not whatever because they're not coming out with it. But the problem is they haven't come right out and backed him, right?
But
Because we're stuck in this nowhere zone.
But why does that have to be a thing? Why do
Because
they
people
always
need that
have to?
reassurance, I guess.
But who needs that reassurance? I don't.
But
I don't
know
either.
what's-
But this
you know
fan
what's
base
funny
does.
about that?
The
Remember
majority
last
of
year?
it.
Remember last year? They was like, all right, this Trey's team. We're trying to trade Jimmy. That's how it was, and they still painted this picture that the 49ers don't believe in Trey Lance. And it took until training camp started and Kyle Shanahan had to sit at a table and say, this is Trey Lance's team. I told Trey it's his team. I told everybody on the team it's his team. I told everybody in the building it's his team. The only people that didn't listen is you.
Right.
why does a guy have to sit down and say that?
Because he's
For
tired of all
people
the questions about it.
exactly, but for people to start dispelling their narratives that they're trying to push across.
Well, that
It's
was
terrible.
the Jimmy Garoppolo angle too, with the veteran guy who's taken you to playoffs, taken you to a Super Bowl, and now you're
True.
going to put a rookie ahead of him. So, he had to reinforce that, yes, we're this is what we're doing. We drafted this guy. He's going to take the team. Jimmy's as good as gone until he's not. And then, you have that same scenario where you bring in this complete unknown who lights the world on fire. And now suddenly everyone's going, well, what do you do with Trey Lance? Because now you got this guy. And then, you have this whole controversy, even though for us, it doesn't really need to be one. But I think, we saw what we saw out of Trey Lance, which was he played well. He's a rookie. He made some rookie mistakes. And, you either are going to hand him the ball or you're going to have a quarterback competition if Purdy's healthy. If he's not, then Trey Lance is going to get the ball and he's going to have to go out there and play his game and prove himself. If he doesn't, it's going right back to Brock Purdy. I think it's Brock's to lose at this point after the way Purdy played this season. So Trey's going to get probably the keys to the castle again out of the gate. And if he can't perform up to, this level and win games for us, then I think he's going to lose his starting position and it's going to go back to Purdy. And then you do have, what do you do with Trey Lance at that point? But until then, I don't think we really have that discussion to have. It's going to be Trey Lance to begin with. And then it's going to either be Trey or Brock when Brock is healthy.
See, everything you said was valid and it makes sense. That's common sense, right?
And that is not what
but
people
that's not how
use
these
anymore.
people- exactly. They don't use that. And they're like, okay, Brock Purdy's injured. What do we do? Wait a minute. You still have a perfectly healthy quarterback who's cheap on the roster, who you believed in. You traded up to get him.
Number
he
3
wowed
overall pick 2 years ago.
He wowed you in training camp and during the preseason. You
Played
had high
him
hopes.
in a de facto playoff game against the Houston Texans in 2021 that you had to win to make the playoffs.
Had to win.
Fun fact, he played well in the second half and they won the game. And his stats looked pretty good in that one. It also wasn't a monsoon. That helped.
Yeah. but to totally dismiss him and say, oh, Brock Purdy's injured, we don't know what we're going to do. We should trade for Aaron Rodgers. We should see if Tom Brady will come in and play. We need a veteran to come in and play until Purdy gets healthy. Wait a minute. You still got this 22-year-old kid sitting here who people have compared to young Josh Allen. Why are you totally ignoring that? That's the problem. And that's what 49er fans need to ignore when they hear these national media types just totally not mention his name and think the 49ers quarterback situation is completely void of anyone.
Stop trying to shoehorn names in to the quarterback position. You already have quarterbacks in here. It's a matter of what veteran quarterback are they going to add to compete with the rookie quarterback that they add. That's it. That's your conversation.
We're talking third string.
Yep. You're talking third string
string
and then third string versus development squad. That's what it boils down to. Who is going to have to beat out the Nate Sudfeld type again? Who's going to be your Brock Purdy beating them out? Who's going to be Nick Mullins, beating them out? Whatever that is, right? So CJ Beathard off the list. So
we have 2 quarterbacks who could take us where we need to go.
Right. In different ways, but they can get us there.
Right. And I don't think, as long as the people within the organization know, the people, on, Tasman Drive, as long as they know who's gonna start, that's all that matters. I don't need to be told I'm behind this guy, I'm behind that guy, because we have 2 quarterbacks that can do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need a third guy coming in just because of both of them having some injury issues in case there is a setback or what have you. But I don't think we have the big quarterback controversy that everyone is making.
I don't think so
No.
either.
There's
And,
gonna
you know,
be
both players said on Radio Row for the Super Bowl that they expect to compete. Now,
Yeah.
if that's what they're saying, I truly believe that that's what Kyle and John are thinking.
That's what they've been
Yeah.
told. Yep.
Right.
And you know they're going to do that. Like, there's no quarterback controversy between the quarterbacks,
Nope.
right? They're friends. They get along. They're both young, hungry. They're going to compete for the job. And may the best man win. I'm all for it. Let them go at it. May the best man win, whoever. I have confidence in both of those guys that they can both develop and help this team get to number 6. Right?
And
The
how great would it be
controversy-
for both of them to be both blue chips? Because now all of a sudden you've got somebody that you can trade somewhere else, and then you
Yeah,
can
exactly.
really start to extend the dynasty. You know, then you can replenish
Exactly.
those 3 first-round picks that you lost because somebody's like, "Damn, I need me some Trey Lance," or "Damn, I need me some Brock Purdy," because
Exactly.
somebody's going to want to do that because
Yep.
you're not in 2 years. You're not going to be able to keep them both. You're going to have to decide: are you keeping Trey Lance? Or are you keeping Brock Purdy?
Yep.
Like if this is the world, if everything goes according to plan, and we have our new Steve Young, Joe Montana, John Brody, Y.A. Tittle, like our constant Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, we have our consistent quarterback battle
We
here.
have our guy.
It's perfect, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. Or they decide to pick up the 5th-year option, or they don't decide to pick up the 5th-year option. They do what the Giants did with Daniel Jones. You've got 2 years to figure that out. So hopefully Trey Lance gets the playing time that he needs, or at least when it matters, whether it's the preseason, whatever it is, when he gets his chance to shine, hopefully he shines, right? Like that, at the end of the day, that's what you want, no matter who that is. You wanted that when Steve Bono was playing, Jeff Kemp. I could list all the old quarterbacks, Guy
Don't
Benjamin.
forget Theo Carmasi. Come on.
Yeah, Mike Muscala, I think in '86, Mike Muscala threw for over 300 yards against the Packers, and they won. Like the days.
Maddie, what do you think of John B's comment?
I don't know of how they've. I want to say, like, in terms of mishandling, I think there are things that they could have done to not load the entire amount of pressure on him, right? Maybe you don't need to trade up to 3 to get him. Maybe you could have gotten Trey Lance at 12. It didn't seem like anybody else was jumping around to do whatever. Mac Jones got taken at 15, right? Or whatever the hell it was. So you're sitting there at 12. Maybe you don't need to trade 3. If you get him at 12 and you take him in the first round, do you think people are as freaked out that they traded Trey Lance or traded for Trey Lance or that they drafted Trey Lance? No. It was the fact that they traded 3 first-round picks to move up into the 3rd spot, and they decided to draft Trey Lance there. It's not Trey Lance. It's whoever got drafted there was going to have this insane amount of pressure. So whoever got set up to be in that situation had to be the next Patrick Mahomes out of the gate, or it's going to be questioned until it's proven otherwise, right? I don't think it's been mishandled so much as it was just like set up for completely like impossible expectations. And of course, there's been so much crap that has happened since then, most of which not his fault, right?
Right.
Broken finger in a preseason game. Who the hell breaks their finger in a preseason game? Trey Lance does, right? Breaks his leg
Fingers,
in the
feet.
game against Seattle last year. Starts the season in a monsoon typhoon in Chicago. Like,
A
just
series of unfortunate events.
Right.
was Atlanta going to draft him there? They seem to want.
Yeah, he
Kyle
was high
Pitts.
on
That's
draft boards. He was
And-
high on draft.
And didn't
He was
Mac
high on
Jones
draft
slip?
boards, but was he high on other people's draft boards? Right?
He was.
Like, because at the end of the day, there wasn't. Yeah.
I was at that draft, and I do remember the hype around the quarterbacks because I felt like Mac Jones actually slipped because it was going to be like this quarterback, boom, 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 there at the beginning of the draft, and we traded up to make sure we got our guy because it was such a competitive or seemingly competitive draft for the quarterbacks there in the first few picks. But I think we were all surprised. I remember feeling surprised that Mac Jones slipped. I think he fell back. I'm not really sure why, but because I thought he was expected to go right there in the 2, 3, 4, 5 position too.
It was the Carolina pick that got me, because Carolina needed a quarterback worse than anybody in America, and you're not going to draft Mac Jones? So what makes you think they were going to draft Trey Lance, right? Like, it's one of those deals where, like, I think everybody thought that everybody was going to be in on this, but Arthur Smith's taken over Atlanta at that time. Arthur Smith just seems to me to be a guy that, like, does not have any patience for a young quarterback. Like, I know they've got Desmond Ridder and everything's all great with that right now, but I wonder if the Titans get rid of Ryan Tannehill if Arthur Smith doesn't get him to go down there and play, right? But but all these watching things, that's a smokescreen half the time too, because you're trying to get other teams to think that you're after somebody that you're not.
Yeah.
Kyle Pitts, I think, was their guy no matter what. In
Kyle
fact, a
Pitts,
lot of them, in a lot of
Pitts
the interviews I
before.
heard later, they're like, Kyle Pitts,
Falcons.
when he got there at 4, man, we were so happy. Like, that was the guy, because they figured that they could, whoever they put in there, like, he would work in the offense. But he's done what he's done and gotten where he's gotten. You get to play 1 year with Matt Ryan, but he also had 2 years of dead money for Matt Ryan that was like $427 million too.
Yeah.
So like, you couldn't just upend him and get him out, right? And then if you're drafting a quarterback at 4, you know how much money that costs. So, like, that's another double-digit thing that you're adding onto the quarterback position. Now all of a sudden you've got a $60 million quarterback room. Are you getting $60 million worth of production at that point?
Yeah, but that first year would have been cheap. And they wound up moving on from Ryan's anyway. So from a
The year
business
after.
standpoint, they still could have did
Yeah.
it. Yeah, they still could have did it the same way. Same thing we were trying to do with Jimmy. Bench him for a year, let him learn, start him next year, move your starter. So it could have worked that way.
The other part of the Trey thing that has been unfair to him is the fact that Jimmy managed to stick around last year, even though they were going to get rid of him, right? Because he got hurt. Like, it was just yet another, like, series of unfortunate events where, like, and you ended up keeping him, and great, it all works out because, he leads them to so many victories before he gets hurt. But, like, they didn't get to move on from Jimmy until later this year. So he kind of stayed around. And I think just having Jimmy around makes people not, like, I think subconsciously, but they don't trust Trey because they're keeping Jimmy around. Even though really we know what the circumstances were. Like, you couldn't, it was horrible timing. His healing process didn't take advantage. And then the market wasn't that great for him, and they managed to keep him. They made a run at him, and they got him. Like, one of them, that's never happening again. The odds of him being on that roster last year were just ridiculous. So the fact that he was on the roster last year, even at that time frame, was absolutely silly. So, but I don't think that did Trey Lance any favors either. And again, that's not his fault in any sort of way. But it just doesn't help the circumstantial evidence crowd, right? All they're trying to do is pile circumstantial evidence.
In that same scenario, you talk about he got hurt. So I'm not sure how people are saying that the Niners didn't do him any favors or what have you. The circumstances are what they are. No one could fix that. We were lucky that we had Jimmy on the roster. But, he got hurt. So his development is stifled no matter what. It didn't matter who's on the roster. You got injured, end of discussion. There goes your development, because what are you going to do with yourself? You have to rehab now. So I don't know. The whole thing that the Niners haven't been fair to him or whatever, I feel like that's another false narrative that keeps getting, parroted out there, that he's being whatever mishandled and whatnot.
Yeah, the only thing I can say to that is, the mishandled part is the way he was just used. Like, and we talked about this before, asking him to run into a brick wall 10 times a game. That's not pretty good for your quarterback, So that's the only way I can see. Everything else, they've supported him, and from what they've seen, they've had his back. You know, said he's number one, named him. Fun fact: he was named QB1 last year. No other quarterback was named QB1 officially. So he's the incumbent QB1 going into this upcoming season. Think about that for a second. But other than that, I think the team handled him well, allowed him to do everything he wanted to do, had surgery, zoomed in. They let him stay into the Zoom call during the team meeting. They didn't say, no, get out of here, kid.
Yeah.
You know, let him wheel around in the team meetings with one foot. They did everything they could for him, except for play him the right way, I feel.
The 49ers, to answer this question on the bottom, the 49ers didn't sleep on the Stafford move. The 49ers got inside jobbed on the Stafford deal.
Yeah.
Because Stafford's agent used to work with the Rams on a bunch of different stuff, man. That was an inside deal that was already done. And
where's Matthew Stafford
Shanahan
now? He's contemplating retirement.
Right. And Shanahan was in Cabo during that whole thing. If Matthew Stafford wanted to go to San Francisco, he would have had his agent talk to San Francisco. He wanted to go to the Rams. He was told that they wanted to make that move. They needed to make that move. The only way that would work would be basically if they used their first round picks to get rid of Goff's contract because they had married themselves to Jared Goff. And this was their only way out. This was their Hail Mary. And it worked. They got their Super Bowl. They're going to be in cap hell this year, next year. If I were them, I'd just eat it this year. Just eat it, all of it. Every bad cap hit, you might as well just get them all out of the way now. And then you'll be in good shape for next year. Do whatever you can. Just eat it. Use some draft picks this year and go play. Nobody's going to be at that state. There's going to be 97% 49ers fans for the Rams game anyway this year, so you might as well just eat it this year because you still got a shiny new Super Bowl ring.
No.
Right.
Levi South.
Breaking out.
Another important position, the center position. Do we bring Brendel back or do we draft a center?
Both?
I think we're going to try and bring Jake Brendel back.
Yeah.
I think he's one of our free agents that they're definitely going to try and keep.
And I don't think the market's going to go insane for Jake Brendel. If it does, just sign me out. Like, get me out of here. I can't.
Yeah.
Check,
Unless
please.
they
like if the centers start getting $400 million a year, like get me off the planet. Like they're working hard and everything, but like you can't pay every position $400 million a year, right? It just doesn't work like that. So
yeah, I'm thinking unless some team calls that one guy at Pro Football Focus who loves Jake Brendel and just says he's the greatest thing since Trent Williams, you know, on the offensive line, I think he's cheap, and we could bring him back. So I do see them targeting him, veering back, and look for a guy for the future.
And PFF still doesn't like Brock Purdy because there's no picture.
Still have his picture up.
they're waiting for the surgery too. They want to make sure that he makes it through the surgery. Because if he doesn't make it through the surgery and it's bad news, like, well, we didn't want to waste a picture.
We didn't want to waste the time putting his picture up.
Right.
There'll be a picture of his arm up there.
I was just gonna say, you know what? Just put his elbow up there.
Yep. This is all you'll see.
Put a UCL pick up there. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Hi, Booker.
All right. So next week is free agency. Everybody enjoy that. We will be back next week if nobody has anything else. How about we do the hurry up offense and the 2-minute warning?
Wait, wrong mouse. Okay. Yeah.
2-minute warning.
Yep.
Go ahead, Maddie.
No matter what happens, you just have to have faith that what's supposed to happen will happen with this team, because at the end of the day, literally, there's nothing in our control. Nothing. If the NFC title game didn't prove to you that there's nothing that can be controlled, thought out, or planned for, that's it. So no matter what happens, unless it's so blatantly obvious that it's somebody's fault, I'm not going to accuse anybody of trying to ruin somebody else's career. It's just not my bag. I don't think that's where we're at. Series of unfortunate events. Let's just avoid them moving forward.
Trust the Shanna plan. Go Niners.
I'm going to shake the candlestick dirt and say good luck to Purdy for surgery. And go Niners. As Jess said, trust the Shannon plan. The guys are going to make the best decisions they can for the team. And it's out of our control. There's nothing we can do, but we will have fun watching and seeing what happens.
Yeah, I want to say good luck to Brock. Hope all goes well in surgery. I just want the young man to be healthy. Period. I don't care if it's a 6-month thing or a 12-month thing. I just want the young man to be healthy. And shout out to Emmanuel Mosley as well. Keep getting healthy, man. We love you. We hope you come back. Come back, E-Man. That's all I gotta say. He's been on my mind. Come back, E-Man.
Yeah, come back, E-Man, for sure. Again, good luck to Brock Purdy. And, enjoy free agency next week. Not every big name is going to come to the San Francisco 49ers. Just remember that.
We can't sign everyone? What?
I know this is
They
big
could
news.
only do that in 1994. That was the only time they were able to do
That's
it.
last time. Yeah.
That was it.
Right.
That was it.
All right, guys. Like, subscribe. Join us next week. We have a really cool guest coming on next week. Have a good night.
See ya.
Thank
Bang,
you.
bang.
Course for the upstart 49ers. They're 6 yards away from Pontiac. 3rd and 3.
We'll see a pickup sometime on the right side, possibly.
Montana looking, throwing in the end zone.